YouTube.
YouTube. Gotcha.
On YouTube Live. It looks like we're live now. So I can send you the link as well, Rich. I'll just send that to you right now.
Yep.
Let's make sure that this actually pops. YouTube.
YouTube. Gotcha.
On YouTube Live. Okay, cool.
It looks like delay or something. I'm hearing it. Where'd you send that?
I'm sending it right. I was dealing with my own volume loop, so we didn't destroy people watching with the volume just exploding everywhere. But we should be good. I think everything's working. I think this is one of the first times that, outside of just starting late, there isn't actually like a goof 'em up right away.
Yeah, it looks like we're good to go here. Are you loaded in?
Yep, I'm loaded in. While they're
Awesome.
looking at that, because they're going to see my mouse go all over as I'm on a different window looking at stuff. Rich, hello. Thank you so much for joining us today. As you and I kind of talked about when we first set up this meeting, I'm not going to hold you forever because you have other things to do tonight. If I remember correctly, you have a game to run tonight. Yes?
Yep. I run to stay in the Cthulhu spirit. I run a Delta Green game RPG on Monday nights for my old gaming group. So
cool.
So we're delving into the mythos tonight to see where they end up.
Cool. What great parallels. So for those of us who are joining us for the first time, and for those of us who are watching after we're done with the live stream, I'm Jackson Wood. I'm the marketing and events coordinator for Japanime Games, and we have Rich Gain with us today. And Rich, go ahead and just tell them all about yourself, however you want.
Sure. Well, longtime gamers, and especially Lovecraft fan. Bought my first Lovecraft book when I was like 13. I have worked in the game industry for 20 years. In all different levels. Currently, I work for Hush Hush Projects. We produce the game Fog of Love. But right now, we're talking about the Kamigami Battles Rise of the Old Ones. I redesigned the Kanzumi Goddess game that Japanime published many years ago as Kamigami Battles, Battle of the Nine Realms, and River of Souls. And we talked about this at the time because of my passion for Lovecraft and everything Cthulhu mythos, that we would try to do a Japanese-themed Cthulhu mythos card battle game. And this is it. You see it here on the table. It's live on Kickstarter right now. Doing great. If you haven't got into it, you should definitely get involved because it's going to be one of the big ones.
Everybody gets to see all of my tabs, unfortunately. I'm just gonna go hide this one. No one needs my my bills and shit tab, as it were. Before we go full screen. But thank you so much for that introduction, Rich. You and I only got to meet, I think, for like the first time really, like in person, have a long-term conversation before COVID happened.
Yeah. It wasn't too much. We saw each other in passing because all of us, we were working conventions, so
yeah.
We didn't have a lot of time to socialize with all the hours we were putting in. So
yeah.
I think they were both PAX shows that we met.
Yes,
so,
I believe so.
Yeah,
over the years.
Yeah. So we did have dinner briefly, I think, but it was a while ago.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's been a bit. But again, I want to say thank you so much for joining me. And thank you to all of the wonderful people who are in our chat right now. As always, if you are joining us for the first time, this is an AMA, like Ask Us Anything kind of stream. But today we're also, as Rich said, we're going to be looking at the game itself on Tabletopia for a little bit. We're going to show you teasers and some tastes of it. And I believe that we are actually going to give them access to like a stream down bit at some point during the campaign, like later on.
Yeah, and actually we are looking for playtesters, so if you're interested in playtesting, get your information in Japanime, and then they'll get it to me, and we can set up some times to actually go through the playtest. The plan is that if you help us and do a significant amount of playtesting, we'll get you some cool promo stuff and other things to help us out.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, that's very true. We like to make sure that the people who help us make sure the games come out as best they can be on the other side before getting into your hands get some kind of compensation for that. But let's take a moment. I just want to kind of recap day one because this is an earlier stream than we usually do, so it'll be really brief. But we funded in 3 hours, which is always exciting. How quickly did you think we were going to fund Rich?
Truthfully, I don't know. I mean, we did well on the first Kickstarter, but with the Cthulhu factor in, who knew, right? But it seems like it was way above my expectations.
Good.
I think it took us a full day to fund back when we did the original Kamigami, but that was a untried product at that time, other than Kanzumi, which was before it. But we, of course, modified lots of stuff, so we weren't sure how that was going to go. But I think with the mythos, Cthulhu mythos, Lovecraft Country just ending last night, and everybody kind of getting back into the stories of Lovecraft, this was a good time to kind of launch this. So.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that for me on that topic, it is, as you said, like we have Battle of the Nine Realms, we have River of Soul, we have these 2 other base games plus a number of expansions now at this point. Like it's done. It's persisted. It obviously did well, right? Like it's made it this far, and so it's nice to have that brand recognition to some extent to get here and be able to do something new and cool like this.
I think one of the things I'd like to point out is these, if you want to zoom in a little bit on the locations. I don't know how much you've shared of them, but I'm putting them out here. The locations are probably some of the best stuff that we've done in any of the arts. The artist on these, I don't actually know who that is. Maybe you do.
I don't offhand, unfortunately. I know it's in a file. I just don't.
In my head, when I imagine these places, these are what they look like. So.
Yeah, no, these all look. They look gorgeous. We have not done. We did one teaser, and that was actually in the reveal video that we launched today. We showed off the Nameless City, I do believe. Yeah,
that is definitely one of my favorites. So.
It's one of mine too. And working with Sean to get that video together, I was like, you can use whichever ones you want. They're all cool, but this is the one I like.
Relay is really good too. While it's very hard to capture non-Euclidean geometry, it feels good. It feels like it might be close to it.
Non-Euclidean geometry in a world where,
where we can only see part of it.
Right. It's a good representation for our mortal eyes.
Yep.
Well, this is a good time to ask a question. So, Koji wanted to know, what's your favorite Lovecraftian horror? We're just kind of intersperse these questions as we go.
Lovecraftian story?
This is a Lovecraftian horror. I mean, if you have multiple answers for it, go ahead and rattle them off.
Sure. Well, the one that scared me as a kid, and I still, is near and dear to my heart, is Rats in the Walls, because it combines a lot of like classic Poe-like horror. But then also adds elements of like Pulp Fiction kind of, wrestling with snake men and all that other stuff. And there's been a lot of like Robert Howard wrote stories that were very similar to that. So that's probably, to me, one of my favorites. I mean, Mountains of Madness has got to be the classic one. That's the one that you got to read to kind of get the whole idea that there's more than just these little creatures here and there. But Rats in the Walls is still a short one, but one of my favorites.
Cool. That's one I actually haven't read. I could easily admit, like, I'm nowhere near as well versed as you are. On these topics.
Well, I've been going to the H.P. Lovecraft Film Festival for like 20 years, maybe something like that. So I've seen so many versions of all these, but Rats in the Wall is still one that always gets me excited when I see somebody doing it.
Good. That is good to know. I will keep that in mind for future things, if ever it's relevant. I've participated in stories, like I've read Mountains of Madness, and I've read some others that I've enjoyed, but I never got super deep into it. And so this project at least has inspired me to start reading those stories, especially from the different authors that have come since Lovecraft, to see other takes that people have put on this mythos.
Yeah, there's plenty. I actually there's collections of Robert Howard, who did Conan. Mm-hmm. There's a collection of his Lovecraftian stories that he did, because the Conan world and the Lovecraft world are kind of intertwined, mm-hmm. and so some of his characters cross over, and there's actually a story where Conan's battling the Serpent Men.
Cool.
So, yeah.
Yeah, as people are already saying, like, I didn't know about those things. And they're like, all right, cool. Like, that's the kind of response we like to see for this.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, while we're chatting about other stuff, Rich, like, why don't you show me this game? Like, let's pretend I've never played
Sure.
Kamigami Battles before. Tell me about Kamigami Battles and, like, tell me the brief overview, and we'll do those things.
So in Kamigami battles, you all represent gods. So similar to in Magic, where you're a commander. In this case, you're one of the gods. In this case, the gods of the mythos, Cthulhu mythos. In the base set, we've divided it up between the outer gods and the old ones. The outer gods being the oldest of gods who have actually have some concern for mankind as compared to the old ones who have no concern for mankind. So Cthulhu being one of the old ones who sleeps in relay. And so what happens is you get your god. Your gods generally will have... Oh, we got a token stuck there.
Gotta love that fun part of Tabletopia. Just sliding right on in between them.
All right, so you have your gods, and then you also, as part of the game setup, you're going to pick one of these locations. And as part of the locations combine the gods' abilities here. So you basically get a god, and you get a total of 4 abilities to kind of start your character. So
okay.
I got some physics issues here with
that's fine.
the card going through the board. There we go. That's usually how you fix it. So as you're doing this, you're gonna start building a deck. If you've ever played deck builders before, the deck starts with a very basic set of cards. We have the servitors in this case, which are unique to this game, and the cultist, because no good Cthulhu story doesn't start with some cultists in it.
Right.
So using the cultist, you're going to use their power to create faith. Faith is the commodity that allows you to buy cards. And cards...
So the currency, the money of
the currency, exactly.
Cool.
And so all the cards, if you look here, you can see the warriors, which are those who are doing the fighting for you. And in this storyline of this game, the outer gods have tricked some adventurers to even work for them, or the old ones, as well as some of their own servants who they've given more of a human form to lure humanity with.
Good
sometimes
horror
with very
aspect.
big lures, if you're a Kamigami fan, you know to expect.
Yeah.
You buy these, you add them to your deck, and what's unique about this game as compared to probably almost any other card game is you're going to get to use them next turn. They're not going to go into a discard pile and be randomly shuffled through your deck, and you might not see them for 3 turns.
So it goes right on top.
Right on top, and both you and your opponent now know what to expect next turn. So if they see you buy a big monster that's going to attack them, well then they can plan ahead and maybe buy some defense on their turn to prevent it. So it gives you some push and pull. Decks tend to be very small compared to classic games, and how you win is what's called energy. Mm-hmm. And when a god's energy goes to 0, and you're the only god left, you win. So there is no hidden victory points in the deck. There's nothing. You know when the game's going to end. Mm-hmm. It's not going to be a surprise to anyone at that point, unless you have some real fancy tricks in your sleeves. And the big tricks in this game, and again, another fairly unique element of this game, is you have what's called a chaining mechanics. Mm-hmm. So instead of how many cards you can play a turn, the rules in this game follow what are called chaining mechanics, which is each card has a large circle with a color and a symbol for you colorblind people out there. And then they have 2 sub-colors, which are what are known as chaining colors. So, for example, if we take this Servants of Zathi, which chains into white or yellow, if we had Professor Paula in our hand, we could chain right into Professor Paula. And so therefore we could break the rule of being only ever to play 1 card, because we have actually had cards that chain into each other. So part of the gameplay and part of the deck building mechanics, similar to a lot of card games in general, is to make a deck that makes sense and make a deck that works and flows together. Because otherwise, synergy, exactly. The new element we've added with the game is the artifacts. Artifacts are interesting because they don't do a lot on their own. They usually modify other cards or help you do other things.
Okay.
But they always change into their own color, which means you're always going to be they don't take up a slot in the chaining mechanics if you have another card to chain into.
Okay, so they're like a free play if you do it right.
Right, exactly.
Cool.
As we're building the artifacts for the game, there's some that are actually going to create strategies of deck building around them.
Yep.
But you're only ever going to get one of each artifact, so they're never going to play a giant role in the deck. The warriors are still going to be your focus.
Mm-hmm. But they might, and it opens up design space, because this is a great way to talk about this being a departure from the original Kamigami game, because they don't have artifacts. This is new to this set. And
yes, but we have discussed it. We're not sure how it's going to happen. There might be some reveals later in the campaign or something. We haven't necessarily forgot about the first edition of the game and the original game, but these are pretty much, as of right now, unique to the Rise of the Old Ones and other expansions that we're planning.
The video that went live today actually originally had a teaser for some of that stuff that we talked about.
Okay.
But it ended up going to the side. We ended up saying no, not right now. We'll talk about that later.
And again, if you're familiar with Kamigami, you know that usually we will produce a couple expansions. We have 2 expansions which are going to go into alternate storylines and other dimensions and things like that are going to flesh out the original gods, the original artifacts, and the original heroes and monsters that are featured in the original set.
That's exciting. Again, I love talking about design space. My background is miniatures. Like, that's where I got my start in this industry. And so I just love talking about design space all day, even though I'm a marketing nerd. So I won't dwell on it. So we've got these new artifacts, but continue.
So, I mean, as you play the game, you're going to take these warriors. Your red warriors generally are going to be your ones that are going to take down your god's power. But you can also win the game by getting your god to 25 life. So there is an alternate way to win, and that's by building up your own god. Mm-hmm. One of the new features and one of the things of the original Kamigami that changed from the game that we based it off of, Kanzumi, was we added these temples, and temples will generate energy for you, and there are ways to then move that energy to your god, use that energy to buy or pay for other things. But they are also able to be attacked by your opponents, and if they ever go to 0 energy, they become destroyed permanently. Though, little teaser, there might be a way to bring them back in a Rise of the Old Ones.
Oh, fun.
Which has never been done before either.
Again, design space, right? Like getting to do new fun things.
And again, we're in the middle of play testing a lot of stuff. We've got the basics down, but over the course before it's published, we're going to probably do some tweaking here and there. Hopefully the fans can get involved in that process. Another design space element that we haven't actually touched on before, other than to use it for the temples, is I have some ideas behind using these gods' spheres, and perhaps using spheres for effects as well as maybe vulnerabilities or strengths for the warriors based on the spheres of your god. So
that'll be really cool. I'm really excited to hear more of that when we have those discussions outside of this. But it sounds like it's pretty easy to get into, right? Like, I mean, I've played before, but for those a pretty quick explanation, all side tangents and otherwise aside. So.
One of the things we're also going to do, because we feel that while we have plenty of fans of Kamigami, there's going to be some new people who are fans of Cthulhu. So plan in this is to actually include almost a walkthrough tutorial in the game that's going to take the game apart and walk people through it. So if you're new to deck builders, if you're new to Kamigami, you're going to have an easier way to kind of get started without having to read all the rules and learn everything. You're going to learn as you play.
Cool.
So.
And I know we were talking about that, but that's like, from this post-COVID lifestyle that we live in now, having more accessibility to games, let alone like game tutorials, is huge.
Right.
So I think that's a really great step that you wanna go down to make it more accessible.
And as you see here, we already have Tabletopia, so we're kind of on them steps already, and potentially might, have this available for people online as well, similar to some of the other games that we've done in the past. So.
Well, that sounds great. Shall we play a couple of hands of this while we talk about some other stuff and we take some questions and more or less just kind of talk about this campaign and like what we're excited for?
Sure. If you want to pick a god, and I'll pick one, and then we'll take our spots and play a game.
Yeah. Do you want me to sit right next to you as we are here because it has us both in the red and blue slots? Do you want me to just take over a different player space just in case?
You are the director in this case. Whatever you think is going to be more visually appealing to our fans.
Well, I mean, sitting across from each other so they can see sort of the breadth,
Sure.
or even next to each other.
Yeah, red and blue are kind of the default colors that we are. So if you take red, I'll take blue.
Yeah, we'll just...
And we'll go from there. If you have any preference, let me know. No. Otherwise, I'm just going to start picking. If you're going to play Cthulhu, you got your god in your temple?
I mean, probably switch. We'll just be thematic.
Yeah,
we'll do the
classic relay.
Yeah, so we'll just set that there.
And let's see here. Let's kind of clean this up a little bit. I'm going to take the old black go to the woods here, Shub Nagoroth.
All right.
I just will preface this. We are in the process of getting all these cards finalized, so these might not be the final titles and things like that, but we're working on hopefully making most of these be exactly what you see here. But there might have to be some modifications.
Absolutely. And somebody has a really good question before we get started. How do artifacts work? Do they work exactly like regular cards? Are they one-time use?
So artifacts work just like warriors. They go in your deck. You use them. If you notice, as somebody was talking about colors chaining into colors, again, artifacts chain into their own color. So every color has a chain into itself in some respects. Doesn't really change a lot of things, but they also have an additional chaining color. So by combining them with your warriors, it'll give you more flexibility in making a deck that's a little more combo oriented.
All right.
And that's our goal with them, is to add elements of it. And then, of course, if we're going to be Shub Nagoroth, we're going to take the Severn Valley, which is where Shub Nagoroth lives.
I'm just flipping your card to give you a hand there while you're sorting other stuff.
All right. And then our decks should be all made. We shuffle them up. We take 5 cards.
All right.
If you hear that in the background, that's my very, very large dog barking at a dog that's walking by.
Oh, what kind of dog do you have?
Sorry, I have a Cane Corso. It's a Italian Mastiff. She's about 8 years old now. She's been with us for a long time, but she's she likes to make sure everybody knows she's around in the neighborhood. So her bark, though, is definitely much worse than her bite, because she probably, if you give her a treat, she'll be your best friend for life.
I understand. Back in Colorado, I have a pit named Thor, appropriate for Kamigami.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
He's a blue-nosed pit, and he is also the same way, like big old lover, but you just got to let everybody know he's there.
Mm-hmm. Our male person is very afraid of her, even though all she would probably do is lick her to death, if that's the thing. All right, so we have our can. You can start if you want.
No, go ahead and go
Okay, sure.
first. I'm just gonna...
So in this game, the resource, like we said, is faith. Disciples are played, which are your basic cards that you start with, are played outside the chaining mechanics that we've talked about.
Cool.
It can just be played as you want. Servitors, fortunately, unfortunately, are mostly cards that are going to be used on your opponent's turn. Mm-hmm. They're defensive cards, so luckily I got them out of the way now. So at this point, I'm going to start looking. I have 3 faith to spend. Mm-hmm. So I say let's just start this out aggressively. By the way, a little piece of trivia here. Jack Dalton, if you want to go over that.
Yeah.
Is one of the RPG characters from a long-standing campaign I have, a friend of mine, who liked to light whiskey on fire and throw it. So if you can see in the picture, they captured that perfectly for him.
I've got the art blown up. That is one of the nice things about doing this virtually, is I can just zoom in on a piece of art.
Okay.
Real nice.
So in case you didn't see it, I bought the Servant of Zathi here for 3. Servant of Zathi now will be on top of my deck, which is, again, something, if you haven't played Kamigami, you got to get used to, because other deck builders never do this thing. So it's something that, first couple of rounds, you're probably going to have to, check yourself to make sure you did it. But my turn's over. Your turn there.
All right, cool. So I have 4 cultists as well, so I'm gonna play those. I'm just gonna drop them all out and just build a stack as I go. But I got 4 of those. I had 1 servitor, so that doesn't really do me much. But as we said, we can look at cards. So I could either get the Dark Young, the Servant of Zathi like you did, or I can get Jack Dalton. And I think oh, I can't get Jack. Jack's 5. So let's get a Dark Young. We'll start by getting a Dark Young. I'll just put that on top of my deck so everyone can see. And that
So
will be it.
you can see too, if you want to look at your gods actually have some themes to them, but also your temples. So like for you, a good purchase for you is putting warriors back into your hand. I'm sure anybody who's played Kamigami is going to say, "Wow, that's really powerful," and it is. But we've actually that's already been adjusted in the playtest, just not on this version of it. So, but Shub Nagorath here, on the other hand, she benefits from having green cards. So while I didn't buy a green to start, the theme around her deck is going to be to, since she's the black goat of the woods, to use green cards to kind of power up her deck, because they can actually increase your faith without having to play disciples. So, all right, so my turn. First thing I'm going to do is be aggressive. And I'm throwing the Servant of Zathi at you. Servant of Zathi is an attack 2.
And so at the end of my turn, I draw back up, correct?
Yes, sorry. Yep, you draw back up to 5.
Cool. I'm just going through this. So I would have drawn that Dark Young I had.
Yep,
So I can
Dark
play
Young
that.
is definitely going to be up there. So Dark Young defends 3. So very similar to a lot of card games out there. I do an attack, he does a defense. In this case, the defense blocks all the damage, so nothing happens. I have no additional effects to play, maybe.
And for those who are watching, again, while we're doing this, please ask your questions. This is definitely going to be the most apt point to, ask questions of us outside of just the norm, as we kind of, showcase this again. And we'll probably play for about 10-ish minutes, so we're not going to get through too much, so we're not going to see too much, but that way you can get ready for your game, because I want to make sure you get to do that.
Oh, yeah, yep. No problems there.
I also have obligations tonight, but I also have other work to do today, so, us ending a little early, you getting out, not that big a deal.
All right, so we have 4 cultists. So again, another thing about this game, similar or different than other games, you don't have a limit to your buys. You can actually buy as many cards as you want. So if you have enough money, you can keep adding cards to it. I'm going to take a cue from you. I'm going to grab this Dark Young here. Something I forgot to do last time is my Severn Valley, because the black goat lives there, likes it when you buy warriors. And so I'm going to, once I can get this card to lock in here, sometimes you have to pull them back to your hand and then put them back in. This is not a flaw of our game, guys. This is Tabletopia.
It's just that. And for those who are watching, you can answer this too. So I played my card in reaction. Is that going to be discarded for folks at home, or is it going to go back?
That will be discarded at the end of the turn. All cards stay in play until the end of the turn, unless it says otherwise. Especially on your turn, to make sure that chaining mechanics kept track of.
Yep.
So because I purchased the Dark Young, Severn Valley gets a additional energy on it, and then I can remove 2 from it to put 1 on my god, which is an act, which means I can do it right now. So I'm going to do that, which then means one of these tokens I took off goes on my god. Now my god's up to 16.
Oh, dang. It's a rush now.
So now I'm offsetting any attacks he's going to have for me now, so I don't have the back against the wall. And my turn's done. I just have to draw my hand, and you can go there.
All right. And so if I was being smart, I wasn't just because I wanted to show off the card, but if I was being smart, I would have played the Servitor. But this gets discarded.
Did you just discard that in my hand?
What? No, that was mine.
Oh.
That was the one that I had out, that I played in response.
Gotcha.
And does that slot get filled, or does it stay empty?
Oh, the slot, it gets filled immediately. Something we introduced in the later sets in the last Kamigami, and it's one of the ones you have to keep track of, and you have to refill immediately. It's called Reveal. There's only one in this set so far, but the idea is that random creatures that are harder to control, things like that, end up having the ability called Reveal. So whenever they're revealed, they hurt or help the current player. So it's almost like a quick, random event is how the reveal cards are meant to be.
Okay. That's really cool for people. What do I want to do here? Just with the three, I'm gonna follow your act on the last time, and I'm gonna buy a Servant of Zothi, and then I'll be done.
So, it's going to tell you that I left for a second. I have to do a refresh because
that's okay.
My hand is it keeps multiplying instead of just that dark young on the table there.
Just going all over the place
on me. So yeah. So, and again, part of the problem with Tabletopia sometimes is learning how Tabletopia works.
Oh yeah. Like, even people who are watching are like, why is Jackson doing all of these stupid things with cards? What is his problem?
Yeah, I can see your hand has an issue because of the color of that one card.
Yep, exactly. So you get to cheat there. So somebody had a question. Koji's got a number of questions. The Disciple 2 for this set, does it count for itself for this effect? For its effect?
Which the question here?
So the way they worded it, you may know better. So their question is, the Disciple 2, so Disciple number 2 or whatever, for this set, whatever that is, does it count itself for its effect?
It does not, because if you notice, it actually says, unfortunately my screen's not up, but if you can bring Disciple 2 up.
Yeah, where is Disciple 2?
That's the one in the middle, right there, the High Priest.
There we go. Thank you. For each Disciple 1, so it specifically calls it out.
Yep.
Cool.
Yep. We have learned a few things over since the original game to kind of make the wording a little more clear, especially so you don't have to look it up. But yeah, so it only works off Disciple 1. So filling your deck with them is just not that good, and that's a kind of a design idea so that you can't just spam High Priest and fill your deck with them. You still have to keep some of those cultists in your hand because the High Priest has no power if they have no cultists. So, too many chiefs and not enough Indians, I guess, is the old term for it. I might be dating myself, though.
there is probably a better term these days, but yes.
Yeah.
And so
too many cooks in the kitchen, I guess, is probably a more appropriate one here.
Yeah, that would, some imagery and whatnot. I think the older term paints a more clear picture as somebody who has worked at a kitchen. There's a lot of cooks in a kitchen.
Right. If you don't have any prep people, though, you nothing's going to get done. So.
Exactly. Prep cooks, sous chef, like there's a bunch going on. So I think there's a better term out there than both of them somewhere, but...
so that does work very specifically and is meant to be that way, so you're not going to want a full deck of them because they're just not going to help you that much after you get so many. But they are very powerful and really ramp the game up.
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
Very quickly.
So somebody else, Moxanthia, also had a question, which might just be a clerical question. I'm going to read it verbatim just because that usually, if I don't know the intent, that helps a lot better. A question I've always had about the game is, are you supposed to have 2 Disciple 2s or 2 Disciple 3 cards in your starting deck? The rule books had conflicting information.
Oh, sorry about that. I guess that was definitely an error which should be corrected in the current rulebook, but I'm going to check it when we get done here just to make sure. But it should be Disciple 3. And basically, the Disciple 2 is the upgraded Disciples, and you don't start with any of them in your deck. And it's kind of a classic deck building strategy is there's going to be 2 cards that in your opening hand are not very good. And so the Disciple 3s take that place, even though they are useful versus your opponent.
Yeah. But I think that's important. And that actually came, part of that, I think, because Moxanthia was around for it, we were having a conversation about terminology and, templating versus editing, all these things, right? Specifically relating to things like that, where it's well, make sure your terminology, make sure there's a good style guide. And so,
It was a change. I think that this change with the disciple happened later in the development, and so maybe slipped through in the rulebook because the rulebook wasn't updated when we updated the way disciples worked, because we were trying to make a way so that you could use all the different disciples in some way. And so I think that's probably what happened. But again, I just did a re-editing of the rulebook based on FAQs and questions we've had. But please feel free to send any more to us.
Yep.
So we can make sure we address them in the current rule book, and I'm sure we'll make that available on the website so you guys can get the most updated rules.
Yeah, and it's part of why we took the tact to, probably similar to what we did for Tokyo Sidekick, make this available for a weekend in some capacity to get that extra, like, you're all very interested, like, tell us the things that we don't see right now.
Yeah, Kojiro also points out there's an error in the rulebook, which I think I fixed, but I will check that one as well. In one area, the basic game says 7 and 3, and then the when you're doing your combining sets, it's 8 and 2. It should always be 8 and 2. Okay. But again, it's your game. You can play it any way you want.
We should still have, like...
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Another fun format I think we included in the rule book, but I don't know if that was missed in the editing, is to actually limit the number of warrior cards to 8 is a fun format, because the deck becomes much more themed and can play a lot quicker if you're looking for like a shorter game of the game. So
that's a good
variant. If anybody else has any optional rules or any home rules they'd like to share with us, let us know.
Yeah, please. We love stuff like that. And there's no need to apologize. Again, like, this is us just kind of hanging out, answering a couple of questions while we're here, showing off aspects of the game. I knew, given the fact that we were talking about like half an hour to an hour today, we weren't going to get super deep into it. We just wanted to kind of give a taste. But if you want to keep taking your turn, Rich, while we're kind of winding down and answering these last couple of questions.
Well, actually, my game is not loaded.
Oh, is it not?
So. Yeah, let me try to do another refresh here. And
I mean, if you can't, I'll just start like looking at various different aspects and like showing some stuff.
Yeah, I think we're moving.
Okay,
the gear, the squirrels have been fed, and Tabletopia is moving forward.
Yeah, it looks like your cursor reset, which is usually a good sign for that during this. Yeah, Moxanthia, I'm right there with you. They just said that they play the shorter games because they like to get more games in, especially like in one sitting and having a tighter card pool. And I agree. Like, I enjoy marathon game event where it's like, all right, cool. Like, we got 3 hours. Like, let's play one big long game, or let's play 6 shorter games, right?
Well, one of the goals, and there is, I think, and again, playtesting will pan that out, but I think this game is definitely a little more aggressive than the previous versions. So I think you'll see the games will be moving faster. So Dark Young is in my hand. Choose a card in your discard pile. Unfortunately, I had to reshuffle my deck, so that's not going to help me much. But I can still play it, because with the Shub Nagurath, that's going to give me an extra faith to play with.
Yeah.
So then I can play 3 more Cultist, and that's going to give me 4 to spend. We need to refill here.
Oh, yes.
And that gives us an Elder Thing, which actually seems like a really good choice for me right now. So Elder Thing on top of my deck. Rest of the cards in my hand are going to get discarded. I do get that 1 energy on the Temple here when I buy that card.
Technically, when anyone does, so even when I buy it.
Yeah. And it's one of them things, and that's what our plan in teaching is. We're going to slowly introduce elements of the game, so you might not start with a temple, and if you're a new player, that's always a good way to kind of not use the temples to start, and then kind of move further on. Add the temples once you're comfortable with the basic game. So your turn there, Jackson.
Yeah, Koji. I had told Koji that I'd sent a question along to you, and I think it just got lost in email somewhere because somebody had a rule-specific question that I couldn't find an answer for. So I was like, I'll ask Rich.
Sure.
But they're going to ask it here in a second in the chat, because I was like, fun fact, I have Rich on stream with me later today, so we can ask this question. So it was on my mind. But while they're getting that formulated up, I'll just play out my cards. So I'll just start by playing the Servants of Ziathi that I bought. I'm going to do it back over in my play area. So I'll be attacking you for 2.
This question is above my pay grade as far as
Okay.
reprinting, but it is definitely something
Oh,
that would be nice to do. The question we have to see is
no. The
with
other question, not that question. I have an answer to
okay,
that question.
okay, good.
I'll answer that question. The answer that Heather put, which is going to probably come in the day one update, is that printed errata is coming with this set. We are going to include a pack of those cards for the backers.
Oh, awesome, great.
So that's the answer to that. Heather answered a question on that on the campaign earlier today, but she hasn't put together a hey day one. Here's all the stuff update. She answered that in response to where is it? It was on here. Somebody had asked it on the campaign proper. I'm just gonna find it. To Moritz Lowe had asked that, and Heather's response was, "Great question. We had anticipated printing the corrected cards with the reprint cycle of Battle of the Nine Realms and River of Souls, but without a convention season this year." And Heather was crying over that. Our supplies didn't go as quickly as we had expected, so those packs will be printed with this project, and each shipment will include one. So those are her exact words. I don't think there's any way to take that differently. I think
Yep,
it's pretty
that's great.
straightforward.
Yeah, that's great. It's something that was unfortunately missed, but now it'll be corrected.
Yeah.
And again, if you have any other issues or errata that you want to know about first edition, let us know so we can either address it in the rule book or address it with possible changes to the cards and things like that.
Exactly. So yeah, Heather took care of that one. But you had a rule specific question, Koji. So when you get that one, we'll get to that. But I played my Servant of Ziathi.
So you're attacking me for 2.
I'm attacking you to 2.
And sorry to take away all the excitement here, but I'm going to block that for 2.
Oh no! I mean, that's kind of how these early games are going to be, right? Until you start chaining stuff, which again we're not going to get. But then I'd have 3. So why don't I just buy an artifact? Let's just see what that looks like, and I'll buy the Mist Projector. Just put these in this pile.
All right, and your turn is done.
Yep, that's it for me. We could probably play a couple more hands, and then I'll probably get you going on your way.
Sure. All right, so that card will go in my discard pile. My turn is going to be very boring. It's just going to be a purchase.
While you're doing that, I'm going to ask you this question.
Sure.
So, by Gu Jing, it has a Faith +2 effect underneath the Act ability it has above it. Is this do you know the card in question? Because I don't have it in front of me.
Let's see here. Let me pull up my master sheet.
I was going to say, I'd have to get into ours and pull that up.
Yeah, I should have it on my drive here.
I was going to say, you'll probably have it way faster than I do. I know this one's this is going to be a sort of deep cut. And again, I'm not as well versed. This was it's above my pay grade question. So it's
Yeah, I just actually, because we're doing some possible alternate language versions of the game, I've been delving deep into the first one to answer those questions. So,
it's basically just trying to see if it's supposed to be 2 effects and something got missed, I think is what's happening here, or if it's just
sure,
one.
Yeah, it might be a symbol, the act ability is missing.
Yeah.
Let me see here.
But we'll find that answer while Rich is looking. I was I have no idea what its intent was supposed to be.
All right. So we got, let's see, what's set? That's the, we got the spelling there.
Oh, where it is.
By Jing. Yeah. So what should have happened there? It is missing from the spreadsheet. That should have been just an act. And if unfortunately, it's one of them other ones we missed. Not a huge missing if you played the game, but it definitely would confuse you if you didn't know that. So yeah, that would be an act that you could do instead of the first act.
That's what it sounds like. Again, I wouldn't have known. That's why I came to you, and I'm glad we could just talk about it now, in person, because it'll come.
Yeah, looking at the original spreadsheet that was used to lay out the cards, it looked like some in the editing process it was edited out somehow. Because I know that probably wouldn't have gotten through the play testing if we didn't do that, but probably at a late stage something happened and that word was missing from it. So, but we'll hopefully get that fixed in the reprinting.
Yep.
If we want to pass that on to Heather, so she can pass that on to
Yeah.
In the printing process.
I'm making a note for it right now. Just so that, at least if between the two of us we do it, it should be seen. But yeah, so what'd you end up purchasing on your turn, Rich? Or what were you going to purchase on your turn?
So on my turn, I actually purchased the High Priest.
Cool.
Which is something I can't believe I forgot to do early on, because High Priest really take the deck into overdrive, and once the first one shows up, you start really ramping up, and these high-cost cards end up being very cheap after a while.
For sure. It's all about getting that sort of, especially for people who haven't played deck builder, it's about getting that engine sort of going and starting to get combos going off and really getting that synergy, as we talked about early on. Those cards working well together and making effects happen more efficiently is a lot of what deck builders are about. And so for the people at home, and if you're watching, you'd be able to see this too. Like, on my next turn, if I were to take it, I'm just going to kind of show it because we'll start wrapping up. I'd be able to play the Dark Young, and I'd be able to chain it into a Mist Projector because of those color combinations that we were talking about earlier. And so then we'd start to get more and more of this stuff starting to happen.
Mist Projector, very good card for your for the blue deck kind of variations.
Yeah, exactly. And like this is some fun stuff here between the Dark Young, putting things on top of your deck, and then not actually having warriors being discarded. So like, I'm sure there's all sorts of fun combos that people are going to get into when they get their hands on this.
Yeah, we're still waiting on the final art, but Deep Ones would be very good in this with a deck built around the Mist Projector.
Yeah.
And that's our goal with the artifacts, is to kind of make up some elements where they're going to end up, shaping the way your deck's going to be constructed, because when they do show up, they're going to be very powerful.
Cool.
And just so you know, the Cthulhu is definitely not the final edit. We're going to be changing that up a little bit. We've tweaked that a little bit, as well as some of the other decks here. So even Shub Nagoroth actually is a little different than she is, because I don't think anybody would take that ability that she has first. But that's part of the playtest process, and hopefully our fans can help us in that when they get a chance.
Yeah, I hope so too. So again, if you're interested in this game, if you want to be participatory in the playtesting of this game and other projects too, but more specifically right now this one because it is our focus, reach out to me. You can reach out to me at marketing@ggdistribution.com, and I can get you that sweet NDA that you need to fill out for me, so I can get you in touch with Rich to actually playtest this game.
And by the way, that is not a photo of Jackson. He's just been practicing his ventriloquism and his ability to stand completely still for almost an hour.
It's I like to be a scarecrow. I think that is spooky. No, I'm not in my standard streaming space right now, so I actually don't have my webcam with me. So I figured you'd all get to see Rich's lovely face and not worry about me, and actually focus on the game a little bit more. But, Rich, since I haven't necessarily gotten to see it yet, while we're wrapping up, we hit the $30,000 stretch goal for our first stretch goal, which is HP Lovecraft.
Ah!
That's the first one we wanted to do. Do you want to give them some teasers about that card before they actually show it off later?
Well, yeah, I mean, we can talk about what Lovecraft is all about.
Yeah.
Of course, he's not going to be a red card. Lovecraft was not known for his fighting skills. But he is. Let me pull it up here real quick. Sorry about that.
Oh yeah, I'm springing stuff on you. I'm just like.
Yeah. He's just throwing stuff my way here, but luckily I'm prepared in many ways. So with Lovecraft as the master storyteller, we we've basically made him. Hold on, coming up here for a second.
Oh, don't
See
worry.
how much longer I can stall. Uh, where is HP? Oh, I know where HP is. HP is a little further down. So he is a white card, and one of the design concepts that I used was trying to get the cards a little more themed. So white cards tend to be your bookish sort of people that do research and things like that. And you'll notice the artifacts that are white are mostly books and things. So what Lovecraft's really good at is
Somebody did call white in the chat. They're like, yes, I bet they're gonna be white. So good call.
he actually helps you get books because, well, he writes them. And just as a side effect, if there is, we don't want you to have a card that's useless all the time. If there's no books out, he also allows you to get more cards in your hand. So he's a knowledge sort of guy, but he's very pacifistic. So he's not going to lead into any red cards, but help you further expand your deck or manipulate your deck. So.
And for the artwork, because they haven't seen it yet, I've seen the artwork. I know. You can tell them. It's your choice. Is the Lovecraft card a busty Lovecraft, or is it otherwise?
Wow, I think we should keep that one under. I think what does everybody think?
Yeah, what do people think? Before we'll pose that question as our sign-off question.
I will tell you that there is a picture of Lovecraft in a dress on the internet. An actual picture, so to keep things kind of neutral.
Right? Who knows what it could be.
The story is when he was a child, his grandmother that took care of him actually dressed him as a child, as a girl. So yeah, so there is evidence that Lovecraft did dress as a girl at some point.
As we have said, the old gods have taken on new forms to better entice people as foolish as me, because I'm a big dummy, to work for them, to serve them. And sometimes that's taken on new forms. Be it more waifu-esque or something otherwise, right? Like some of these pieces of art are real spooky.
Yeah, the Dark Young is got to be one of my definitely something out of a Japanese horror.
Yes, no, that
For
piece,
sure.
I'm just blowing it up again so everyone else can see it, even though I have before. It's real spooky.
Hopefully, he'll notice it. But back at Gen Con a couple years ago, we found out that the creator of Japanese horror miniatures game. I'm trying to think of what the name of it's called. Oh, Kingdom Death Monster is actually a big fan of Kamigami. So hopefully he'll check this one out because this is definitely more in line with the miniatures he designs for his games. So.
I'm still painting
Cthulhu there. I don't know. I'm torn. My previous favorite piece was the Ishtar from the original Kamigami, River of Souls, but the Cthulhu, I don't know. I might sell my soul to a dark god for that.
There's a lot of really gorgeous art in this set, both between the artifacts and the art itself. We used a variety of different Japanese artists. We used a phenomenal artist in Brian to do all the artifacts. Like, I'm blown away.
Brian, if you're not familiar with, has done magic art for Brian Snowdy. He also did a lot of work for Privateer Press. So we got him as a good technical artist to really make some crazy awesome artifacts. And again, kind of like the locations for me, these are exactly what these look like in my head.
Oh yeah.
And it's just neat to see them. I particularly like the mist projector because it has that whole tentacle thing going on, and but these artifacts will make everybody jealous. And also, if you do the really high pledge level, you can get one of the original pieces of these, I believe, right?
That's correct. I was gonna end with that, so I'm glad you are like rotating in the same direction I am. I'm like, all right, marketing checklist. Let's go through this. I'm very candid with all of this stuff, so this is very much the like. Let's peel back the veil a little bit. You get to see You get to see us as we are all the time, but like really here. Yes, there are 5 top pledge levels. The Book of Ibon went. I don't know if the other ones have because I haven't looked yet. But each one is a original piece from Brian Snowdy. He is a phenomenal human being, one of my favorite artists. His hyper-realistic art is amazing. Like, again, from what you see here. And he's one of the few artists that still makes a physical production of his piece before digitally scanning it. And so you don't see that so much these days. It's much more digital. I personally picked up a piece that's not even in this campaign. Like I managed to snag a piece from him because who wouldn't want a Brian Snowdy original?
And if you want to look at the Greenstone Idol and show that to them, I mean, if you ever read the Call of Cthulhu story, this is the idol from the swamp that they talk about. I mean, in every way whatsoever.
Yeah.
To me.
Yeah, if you go to Brian's website and just check out like some of his like Japanese armor or just other things that he's painted, like
Wasn't that his current RPG project? Is a Japanese he's working on in his Patreon, I think.
Mm-hmm. That's a whole other discussion that like I could theorize on and talk about forever, given like the privateer roots and some of the things that are there, and like my time with privateer, because that's where I got my start. So
yeah, unfortunately, Sonya did not make it into it, unless maybe this campaign goes well and I can talk Eric into it. Dark Angel Call asked about Sonya Green, which was Lovecraft's very short-lived wife. Well, not short-lived for herself, but the relationship was very short-lived because Lovecraft did not want to leave Providence. He wanted to stay there, and she did not want to stay in Providence.
Fair. All this history. All right, we'll answer a real question from Koji here. They're asking about the Greenstone Idol in general, and I'm sure you can see it there too. Does the warrior play have to be part of the color chain?
No, actually, and there again with playtesting, this was one of the this effect will stay, but if you notice, it's a react. So this is something that you're going to use on your opponent's turn, and during your opponent's turn, there is no chaining. You actually are playing reacts at that point, and so this counts as a react. So you wouldn't have to abide by the chaining colors. But we're probably going to have in the final production, we'll probably have also an act on this card, so it's something that you'll use during your turn.
Yeah.
In the chaining process.
Yeah. Yeah, but Koji's question, like they're asking because the react says defend cards can be played in reaction to this attack, and given how it's worded, it could be seen as referencing back to the Greenstone Idol. So
right. Yeah, so we might want to make that clearer. I'll think through it. It's definitely a good point because your opponent, but generally defend cards are also going to be reacts, and so the rules for reacts are they actually work outside the normal chaining process. So even your opponent playing a defend card would work outside that because all defense cards are reacts. So.
But it's important to ask these questions. Part of the conversation that was on Discord was just about ambiguity in rules, right? Like making sure language is clear and consistent. And it's something that we're always improving on. But we're at about our hour mark, and it's a little bit over actually. So Rich, again, I want to say thank you so much for joining us.
Sure.
Thank you for just being a phenomenal human being and willing to take the time and
no problem.
Hang out.
I enjoy it. With the absence of conventions, I miss talking to fans directly. So this is a good way to at least do it a little bit. And again, I encourage you to talk to Jackson and see if you can get involved in the playtest because all of you seem very passionate, and it'd be great to have you help us with the playtest so that it's the game you want.
Yep.
As well as a solid game without, so we don't have to have all these the FAQs at the end.
Exactly. So any parting thoughts or anything that you are excited about that you want to show off? You can even give teasers if we haven't directly talked about it. I'm giving you free rein.
No, I think we'll let the campaign go its way. It's going well. I think we're going to get everything unlocked. Maybe if we exceed our expectations, we can work on some additional stuff. Who knows? Yep. It's not really you or my choice, but we can maybe cajole Eric into adding some stuff. Mm-hmm. Though I did want to add one. Dark Angelica there asked one more question, which I'll answer.
Yeah, please.
I doubt we will see August Derleth, Clark Ashton Smith, or Robert E. Howard as they are, because all of them require some sort of licensing.
Yep.
The estates are still being managed, but we maybe might have some pastiches, if you will, if the campaign goes well. So, and thanks again, guys. Thanks for all your support. And again, feel free to contact through Jackson.
Yep.
You can always get in touch with me if you have any more questions.
No, absolutely. Again, thank you so much, Rich.
No problem.
I'm gonna end the stream here. But any other questions that you folks might have, again, if you're in our Discord, like, please ask them. I will happily forward them on to Rich if they are, like, Rich specific, or if I can answer them, I just won't bother Rich. But thank you.
All right.
so
have
much.
a great night.
You too.